Hey everyone, it's Ashley. Welcome back to the Pink Fresh Studio YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be using my favorite liquid watercolors, of course, from Pink Fresh, and we're also going to be using the Take Pride stamp and die set. We're going to create two very different looks with these watercolors today, and I would love to just jump in and get started. For our first project, I'm going to go ahead and take the floral wreath image from the Take Pride stamp set, and I'll be stamping that onto some watercolor cardstock with detail black ink from Pink Fresh. This ink is a hybrid ink, and it can be used with both watercolors and alcohol markers. That's really great to have on hand just to be sure that you have something to create with whatever medium you are looking to create with or whatever is inspiring you in that moment. This image, like many of the florals from Pink Fresh, has a lot of little details inside the flowers, which really makes it a telltale sign of a beautiful Pink Fresh set. So I wanted to be sure to use an ink that would also really bring out those fine line details, and the detail black ink works great for that. I like to mix my watercolors so I can create personalized colors or individual colors that I have created. So if I want something to be a little more green, a little more blue, a little darker, a little lighter, I have really been loving sort of playing around with the different colors and what new colors they will make once they're mixed together. So for this one, I'm using key lime, and then I'm also using the sky blue colors of the liquid watercolors. One tip I will give for these watercolors specifically is that they are extremely pigmented. So a little goes a long way. If you're going to try mixing your own colors, I would start with 1 drop of the color that you'd like to mix and then add from there, because you can always put in pigment and colors, but you can't take them out. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of these leaves first, and what I want you to notice as I speed this up is that I'm going to do a very light layer of this green, I would say greenish blue, but I guess it's more just a very light green color on all of the leaves, and I'll be back in just a moment when I'm adding a little bit more depth and dimension. Now that all of my leaf images have a really nice light green color to them, I'm going to add just some really simple dimension and in sort of a messy or not very regimented way. So what I'm going to do is add the color Emerald City, which is this really beautiful deep emerald green, and I'm going to add it right to that mixture of colors and greens that I had before. I went ahead and made sure that my leaves were completely dry because the liquid watercolors will run in together and you won't get a lot of differentiation, and which is what I really want for the depth that I'm trying to go for here. So you can see that I have a very different color, and now I'm just going along those center lines of the leaves, and this will just make it look like it has a little bit more dimension to it. Like I said, I'm not going in and doing perfect shadows, I'm not doing too much blending, I'm just trying to achieve a really loose watercolor look here. I also do want to mention that this watercolor, like I said, a little goes a long way, and I got a little squeeze happy with the droppers for the watercolors. So yes, I do have way too much watercolor here for what I actually need, but the principle is the same when you use it even with just a small amount of watercolor, which is what I recommend doing. So I'm going to hop around now and just show you the different colors that I'm using. So here for just a few of these colors, I'm using Bubblegum, which is this really bright, vibrant pink color in the line of liquid watercolors from Pink Fresh. And then to add some dimension to these flowers that I've decided to paint with the Bubblegum color, I'm adding some of the Lavender liquid watercolor. And this will just create this really beautiful sort of deep magenta color. And again, I'm just going to go in and use a very loose watercolor method of adding a little bit of dimension. Loose watercoloring is a really great technique to use with smaller floral images like this because you don't have to get into every nook and cranny. If you use two separate colors, one lighter and one darker, sort of the same hue or color family, anyone's brain or eyes are immediately going to take the darker colors as shadow or shading and the lighter colors as a highlight. And you're able to achieve that multi-dimensional look without taking a very long amount of time and straining your eyes to get into every single little nook and cranny, like I said, of all the flowers and petals and where you would normally put some shadow and highlights. In just a minute here, you'll see that my next color I use is the Sunshine Yellow color from the Liquid Watercolor line. It's really vibrant and beautiful, a really nice bright color. And to make that color a little darker for my depth and my dimension and my shading, I'm using the Espresso Brown color. Now I do have to go in after I add that, just that one tiny drop of Espresso Brown, I do need to go in and add some more yellow just to make it a little less brown and a little more sort of like a sunflower type color. But I really love the way that the Espresso Brown and the Sunshine Yellow work together. For my final color of the florals in my wreath, I have used lavender very lightly on many of the flowers or any flowers that I had left. And then I'm adding my candy apple red color to it. And this makes this really rich, deep cherry color. And it works really well with the purple just to add that shading and dimension like I was saying before. I could have added a blue as well, and that would give a more violet look than a pink look. And depending on your preference, you could go either way, but I really liked that this added a little bit of color and not just shading to those purple flowers. So here is the finished product after I've gone ahead and ran that through my die cutting machine. And here is the final card. I went ahead and created a square-ish card with some of the corners chomped off, and I made it into a really pretty little shaker that just says, "You amaze me" in the center. So while keeping this really simple, I was able to make a really beautiful card and include in the little shaker bits, which is always fun. For our next project, I'm going to use one of my favorite watercoloring techniques because not only is it fun, but absolutely anybody at any skill level can do it. My family loves to join in with this technique with me. It's fun, it's a little messy, and the results are always beautiful. So what I'm going to do is just use the acetate sheet on the back of the stamp set. You don't have to have your own acetate, you can just use the one that comes on the stamp set. And I've used this printer paper on the glass mat just so that on camera you can clearly see what I'm doing. You don't really need to add the printer paper, but you can if it helps you see a little bit better. So you can see that I'm choosing some colors and just dropping some spots right onto this acetate piece. I've used Sunshine, Bubblegum, and Sky Blue, and these colors will all mix really well together. I wouldn't use a purple and a yellow because when they mix together, you'll get brown. So now that I have all of this paint on this acetate sheet, I'm going to spray a nice amount of water on it. It doesn't need to be too much, but you want to be able to see it move around. So now I've gone ahead and flipped this over on a piece of A2 size watercolor cardstock, and I'm able just to sort of dance around the acetate sheet with my fingers, and you can see this really beautiful sort of like tie-dye watercolor color wash going on, and I just really love how organic it is, and it sort of just does what it wants to do. You can of course pick it up and move it around like I am here. You can use one of those like air puffer things. You can use a straw and blow on it. But for the most part, I kind of just like to let it do what it's gonna do. And then you get this really cool wash. Now it's going to look a little bit better than it does here because I'm actually going to be stamping and then die cutting our wreath out of this. So I'm going to heat emboss, so I'm using an embossing buddy, which is just powder to make sure that my embossing powder only sticks to my embossing ink. I've used Versamark to ink up my wreath, and now I'm going to go ahead and get a nice impression with my MISTI onto this piece of watercolor cardstock. I'm now using some white embossing powder, and I'm just making sure that I get all over the cardstock because it's hard to see where that ink has stamped since it's clear. So we just want to make sure that we get the full image. Now that we have our full leafy wreath image in embossing powder, I'm going to go ahead and hit that with my heat tool so that it sets, and then I get this really beautiful blended floral wreath. And you can see obviously it's different, but we still get that image, all of the detail, and then we get those really beautiful blended colors. I paired this with the Adore Alpha die set and then a fun sentiment that says bursting with excitement for you. I hope that this video is able to inspire you to use these liquid watercolors in your own crafting. If you have any sets that you would like to see used with these liquid watercolors, please let me know and I will feature it in a future video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.